It's Matt Schlapp, chairman of CPAC. Welcome to another episode of America UnCanceled. On today's show, we're going to have two perfect guests to give an analysis of just what the commies are up to next in this great new book from Katie Gorka and Mike Gonzalez, NextGen Marxism. Mike and Katie, thanks for joining us.
So happy to be here, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. I think Katie is proper. I'm not sure I'm proper.
Okay, so we're watching all of these protests really rip campuses apart. There's this whole conversation about, is America permanently on decline? Are we going to have a great divorce? Are we going to split up? Are the communists going to win this great battle on the cultural deconstruction of America? One of you jump in and tell us how bad it is or that it's not that bad.
Okay, I'm going to start because I'm the optimist. I will never accept that we're in decline or that it can't be fixed. Put me in a box, maybe then I'll accept it, but otherwise, no. But, we've got a very serious problem on our hands. And one of the things that Mike and I discovered, or, we knew this, but, we really unpacked this in the book, is the fact that what we are seeing today has been in the works for 100 years. I know it seemed like, we all kind of woke up one morning and our world had gone crazy, but in fact, the radical left has been working toward this moment for decades, honing their lessons, learning from their failures and their successes. So we shouldn't be surprised that they got as far as we did, but we also shouldn't be discouraged. We can learn from our own past, from our times that we have fought them before, and we can absolutely fight back. I think we're in the middle of it now. I think many good things are happening in the pushback, but more needs to happen. And that begins with people understanding exactly what we're up against. That's why I think it's super important that they read the book. You need to understand what this is and what a serious threat it is to the United States.
So are you saying this is like 1917, the seeds were sown, you have the revolution in Russia, and they were right in on destroying America around the same time?
Well, I think, I'll just say quickly, I think part of why I would trace it back 100 years is, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say the seeds were sown for America's destruction in 1917, but Lenin figured out that if you organize people, you can get them to revolt. That lesson we are seeing today. Sorry, Mike, over to you.
I would say that the seeds, that's very good what you said, but the seeds were sown because of the success of the Soviet Revolution in 1917. Other Marxist intellectuals other Marxist ideologues tried to have similar revolutions in Germany and Italy a couple of years later, in 1919 in Germany and 1920 in Italy, and they failed miserably. They could not achieve what Lenin had achieved, and then they pondered, why have we failed? And they came up with pretty good answers. One was that in the West, civil society is too thick. In Russia, civil society had not existed. It was the Tsar and the peasants, and there was really very few mediating institutions. The West, Italy and Germany, were full of mediating institutions. So what they figured out is that one of the things they needed to do was to infiltrate these mediating institutions and to destroy them from within and indoctrinate people. And that is the Western cultural Marxism step that you have as a result, a direct result of the 1917 Soviet Revolution. They said the worker and the peasant are not reacting as we had predicted they would, because they have imbibed, they have bought into the cultural matrix beliefs of the bourgeois, of the oppressor class, and they believe they don't agree with Marx that we must abolish the family or the nation state or God, and they actually like these things. They love their families, the peasants and the workers. They had no interest in revolution. They were only interested in reform, whereas what the Marxists want is complete destruction. So how do they do that? They gain this insight. Let's bore from within and burrow in from within. And that comes to America and flowers in America in the 1960s. And then we have the step that Katie and I call NextGen Marxism, which is what we have. And by the way, our book could not have been more propitious. You know, Katie and I sat down to write this book in December 2022. Little did we know that it was going to come out smack dab. It came out April 2nd. On April 15th, Colombia explodes with the encampment. We have what we have with the reaction, the students embracing, glorifying the massacre of October 7th. This is all of it because of the cultural Marxism, the NextGen Marxism that we discussed. We couldn't have foreseen that. We have just been lucky. We've sold thousands of books already.
We've had this argument at CPAC about what to call this. Now, you say NextGen Marxism. I tend to use socialism a lot because it was always considered a word that was anathema in American politics, and out of nowhere, Democrats like AOC and others started using the word socialist, which we've used, put socialist on any phrase. It was a loser in America. I guess over time they've made it a more polite word. Is it communism? Is it Marxism? Is it collectivism? Do you have the right title, Katie?
I personally think Marxism is important to understanding this. And many of them do claim the term for themselves. And the reason I think it's so important, you know, socialism is really a form of economic management, right? Now, we know it has all kinds of impacts and it leads to tyranny, but in and of itself, it's a way of organizing the economy. Marxism is really a worldview. It's a worldview that divides the world into two classes, oppressor and oppressed, that are irreconcilable. That's what people need to understand, that what the radical left wants here, and actually now that's more and more synonymous with the Democrats, what they want here is not to make things better. They want to tear down, they want to utterly destroy what we have built in America over the last 400 years, and they want to replace it with their Marxist utopia.
Yeah, let
me jump there 1 second, Mike, because I want to ask a quick follow-up on this. I think with my education, I think other people around my age would have had it similar, where Karl Marx was this kind of bearded intellectual that just wanted to find a more amicable way to distribute resources. But when you really read about him, he was a hardcore hater of God, hater of the family, hater of everything that makes people joyful. Are we going to be able to like repaint him in a truer picture?
Oh, he was just a disgusting individual.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think nobody has done a better job of painting that picture than Paul Kengor, The Devil in Karl Marx. If you want to get insight into the kind of person Karl Marx was.
That's the book I'm referring to. That's
yeah, right. I mean, and Marx was, I mean, it's laughable to me that there are young people today who do look at Marx as this, you know, this intellectual from that century. He was a disgusting individual, covered in pustules and boils and, you know, cheating on everybody, living off of everybody, never earned money, abandoned, you know, treated his children terribly, cheated with the maid. He was one of the most heinous human beings, I think, to have walked the planet.
Mike, I'm not conducting this interview very orderly because I meant to throw a question towards you, so jump in here and tell us what we need to know.
I am trying to jump in. So it's not a coincidence that his two daughters committed suicide and that he never recognized the son he had with the maid. Look, you asked earlier, and I was trying to clarify this about Marxism or communism. It's important to note that Marx and Engels never made a distinction between the two. They used them interchangeably in the manifesto and other writings. Communism was the end goal in which after the dictatorship of the proletariat, the dictatorship of the worker, it would be a kind of a utopia where government would not exist. What Katie and I mean by next-gen Marxism is this cultural Marxism right here in America, and then we add the organizing that Katie referred to in her first answer, and then we also add what are we most obsessed with? Race. We add race and we add sex, two things that we're obsessed with. And then we replace, and this happens in America, we replace the worker as the agent of revolution with the, not really race, the members of the so-called marginalized groups that are sexual or racial, right? So a white man who is a cross-dresser and a drag queen is a victim, even though he's white. So we create this whole, as Katie said, this zero-sum game between the oppressor and the oppressed, but not in Marxist world. It was the oppressor was the bourgeois, the capitalist, the owner of capital, and the oppressed was the worker. That's gone now.
So if you look at this as a cultural revolution, kind of more Maoist as much as it is anything else, in America, this whole idea that the fact that people came from different countries and came here because they wanted this American dream, they really hate that, right? They want to make it so that, you know, America isn't a dream, it's a nightmare by dividing us along. It was always race, you're right, but now there's this kind of strange sexualization of almost everything in society. I can tell you when we do these CPACs overseas, really all over the world now, I hate to say this because I really love my country, we seem to be the most screwed up and the most perverted of any of them.
Yeah, we're exporting these ideologies. This is what I say to them, you know, by all means, buy our jeans, buy our automobiles, do not buy these theories. But I always do remind them, these were imported by us from Europeans. We imported them from Herbert Marcuse, George Lukács, Max Horkheimer, and Marx himself, obviously, who was also German. And then we added value, and we are re-exporting it to them. But you mentioned Europe and the sex. What I always say when I speak in Europe is, look, you don't have races here. A lot of European countries are really more monolithic than we are, but they do have sex. So that's why they come in. These cultural next-gen Marxists come in through gender theory, because race theory does not work very well in Spain or Hungary.
Yeah, Katie, you agree?
Yeah, but I would also add, we did bring it here, we made it our own, but what we were also seeing in the aftermath of the protests is that our enemies have a very heavy hand in sort of fanning these flames, and we have to we've got to do more to expose that. We have to recognize that.
So why has it become a winning strategy for the Democratic Party to embrace this radicalism? You know, they used to hide from us, talk in a Southern drawl, act like, you know, they went to church. They did things to try to kind of like camouflage their true radicalism. Now they're just completely out of the closet. They embrace it. They talk about it. They go to abortion clinics to run for the presidency. I mean, it seems like it's counterintuitive to what would be smart politically. Katie, why are they so cocky about it now?
So I don't know how Mike might answer this, but I'm going to say I very cynically have come to believe more and more it's because of money. You know, the more we learn about how our enemies abroad and others are pouring money into our universities, into campaigns, into protests, the more I think that it's really money that's having this insidious influence. Mike, would you argue differently?
I don't want to get into a party political question. I think that one of the things that many have discussed in the context of these campus protests is that a lot of the protests, I'm writing a paper on this right now, a lot of the protests are funded with Obama money. The Tides Foundation is heavily Obama, and they may be underneath a play here between the Obama people. And the Obama people, by the way, are coming out very heavily against helping Israel. You know, what was the name of the fiction writer who became the top aide to Obama? His name escapes me right now. He is tweeting constantly about how Biden should stop helping Israel. I think we may be seeing something happening underneath, in which the far left, more woke, more cultural Marxist wing of that party, represented by Obama, may be saying to the other wing, we're taking over.
So let me ask you a question, Mike. I want to push you on this. Why is talking about Obama not political? I think he's the most political man in the whole world.
No, I know. No, completely. Oh, and he's one of, I think, only two ex-presidents not to leave Washington. I think the other one is obviously Taft, who became a Supreme Court justice. He's very, very political. I'm just saying that his world is now reemerging with this crisis that we're looking at right now. That is a political statement, and I want to stay away from that. But
I understand. You're at a think tank. I'm not, so maybe I can be a little more political. But I would say that Barack Obama is pulling the strings of all of this. He was always the kind of the face of this radicalized movement. But the thing that's really scary is that he had the self-discipline to refrain from going as extreme as maybe he wanted to or his wife wanted him to. And Joe Biden has no constraints. If that's either because he's lost his mind or semi-lost his mind, or he's just doing what he's told. But I think they've been able to make so many advances because they have a very pliant president. So, Katie, that can go one of two ways. That can mean that they're winning this cultural destruction argument, or they believe their own headlines in the New York Times and they're about ready to get smacked. I know which one I hope it is. I just don't know which one it is yet.
Well, I'm still going to argue, even if I think we can see Obama's fingerprints all over this and the Obama people. Let's just say that it's not just him individually,
yes, I agree.
The people that he drew around him.
Yep.
But, you know, like I thought it was really fascinating, this recent report by the Network Contagion Research Institute that came out just following the student protests. You know, they're seeing $20 million coming from the Singham Network to help fund those protests. And the Singham Network has direct ties to China. So again, we know Biden is utterly beholden to China, right? And so I think, again, I don't think you can ascribe it just to Obama and his people. I think there is a lot of heavy influence from some of our most serious enemies.
Yeah. Ben Rhodes is the Obama person I was trying to think of. Ben Rhodes.
Yeah. Oh boy, there's a dirty deeder. I have to say, I've done a lot of interviews about books, and sometimes you get done with the conversation and you always wish them well, but you wonder how it's going to do well. At the end of this conversation, I can see why your book is selling so well, and I want to read it. And I think it fits the perfect moment we're in. So I'm going to give this one to Katie. Katie, give us the pitch as to why you want your son or daughter, or you want your mom or dad to read this book.
Yeah, because I think the only way we're going to turn this around is if we understand it. You know, I was thinking a lot, we're kind of at that same moment that we were with George Kennan's long telegram, right? A lot of sort of decent people thought that the Soviet Union was, in fact, a kinder, gentler way to organize the economy. I think we have a lot of decent Americans who are kind of getting sucked into this, getting sucked into the BLM or the DEI paradigm, but at heart, they're not bad people. But I think it's just because they don't understand it. So I think it's really important that the people who are on our side understand it fully. They have to read our book, understand where it came from, so they can explain it to their friends and neighbors and family members. Otherwise, we are going to lose our country.
Okay, Mike, I'm going to ask you a different question. If you had a magic wand, and we might not believe that there's such a thing, but if you had a magic wand, who would you want to read and digest your book? Who might not?
Who might not? I think the people that Katie referred to, one of the, the Soviet Union used to call them useful idiots. That's a harsh term. There's a lot of people who are good Americans. Yeah. Who have, this is a great phrase from Katie that I'm borrowing shamelessly, which is misplaced compassion. That have misplaced compassion. Who will say, well, capitalism produces unequal results, right? But capitalism is a bad way to sort out resources, which is completely untrue. But I can see how you arrive at that, and they will then say maybe we need something more like central planning. But the problem is central planning leads to collectivism, leads to gulags, leads to repression. It does, like the night leads to day. So unless we want to be unfree, we need to understand that that's the average American, the everyday American, who may not know these things that we discussed. Boy, if she or he were to pick up this book and read it, that would be such a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Amen, brother. So glad that you guys wrote the book. So glad that it's doing well. Come back and keep us posted. Unfortunately, the debate in this nation is going to give you many more hot spots in which to explain what the cultural Marxists are doing in our country. God bless you both, and thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Matt.
And say hello to Mercedes.
I will. She's sorry she couldn't be here. Every once in a while, I have to try to wing it without her. Okay, Mike? Katie understands. All right, talk to you both soon.
Bye.